Hello and welcome back to My House Book Club, where we talk about a different book or a series and hopefully get encouraged to keep on reading. My name is Maya and today we will take a look at All the Light We Cannot See. It's nice to be back after the holidays. I hope you enjoyed. I was supposed to read this book. It was supposed to be my last book in 2025, but Christmas came and went. I was cooking all day, meeting all these people and camp and stuff, so it was super busy, but here we are. I just finished it yesterday. I'll just start by introducing this book. So, All the Light We Cannot See was written by an American author called Anthony Doerr. I hope I'm saying his name right. And it was published in 2014 and won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. This is historical fiction, and it takes place during the Second World War and follows the storylines of a boy called Werner, who's an orphan German boy and gets recognized for his skills with radios. He then gets accepted to a Nazi military school, and yeah, we get to follow how his life goes on. The second storyline follows a French blind girl called Marie-Laure, and her father works in Paris at the Museum of Natural History, where this precious stone is said to be kept safe. Apparently, this stone has some powers, but also a curse. As the Germans come closer to Paris, they flee to a city called Saint-Malo, where Marie-Laure's great uncle lives. Also, somebody is after this stone. I saw the Netflix series when it came out, and when I read this book, I was so surprised at how different they were from each other. I was expecting, of course, differences, but I feel like they changed major things about the characters and stuff. One thing that I didn't expect from this book is how dark and brutal it was. I mean, I don't know why I wasn't expecting it, but yeah, in the end, I was just sad and drained. So, I don't know if I was emotionally ready for that. And for this video, I thought I would change my style a little bit. Instead of doing what I liked first and then what I didn't like, I want to weigh some pros and cons. I did some research on different reviews and stuff, and I didn't know that there were some issues with this book, so I want to talk about those too. I don't want to judge. I'm really not in a place to do that, but rather maybe we can have a discussion on it. And yeah, I would be very interested in other opinions too. There are a lot of people who love this book, but then there are a lot of people who don't recommend it. So let's get into that. As I already had heard, this book was very lyrical, and I was very excited for that. It was filled with details and everything you could hear, smell, touch, and yeah, I really liked that. But what was not expected was how abstract it was and how much symbolism it had. There were many times when I had to go back on pages and then I compared the two pages. Oh, are these talking about the same thing? Or some sentences, I had no idea what it meant, and I had to really think about it long and hard. The thing is, though, I tend to overthink, so I think that's also one reason why I was very drained by the end of this book. And the style in which this book was written, I really enjoyed, because that's how I see the world somehow, like how he was describing things, like characters and colors, or the character of Frederick, who was described as I'm not quoting it straight, but basically it said something like when he talks, he's looking up at the sky as if he's looking for something. And I immediately knew what he meant by that kind of person. And this book was written in present tense, which made it feel very real. The chapters were very short and it kept going back and forth. between the characters. And the style of writing is probably one of the most known and appreciated things in this book. I myself really liked it, but I will say that even the title, I have no definitive clue of what it means. Some of the Werner's thoughts during the book, I still have no idea what they mean, but I have to tell myself I don't need to understand everything, and it's fine. The second point I want to talk about the characters. So as I read and watched some reviews, some said that the characters were flat and some said they're super deep and interesting. So there's two very differing opinions. I personally, how I see it was that, let's start with Werner. So basically he starts off as this curious boy, and his mind, it's incredible to follow, but slowly he turns into like a walking dead. And I guess the numbness that comes out of him, maybe some portray it as flat. I personally didn't think like that at all. Maybe I would say rather he was sort of battling in his mind between right and wrong. One issue that I read about was that this book might have contributed to normalizing, making something bad feel less bad by bringing complexity to Nazism. I think it's important to have an understanding how people come to make horrible decisions, not necessarily because they are evil at heart. But I also think it's important to know that no matter what complexities lie behind those decisions, it doesn't change the fact that they are horrible and had terrible consequences. In Werner's case, I felt like in the beginning he knew what was right and wrong, but when he goes to the school, he himself cannot tell what is wrong, but it's his sister Jutta in his mind that is sort of telling him what is wrong. Yeah, as Werner becomes more numb to life, and it's just very complex morally in his mind, I think it can create sympathy towards him, which some people may find disturbing. Interestingly, he starts this school as a way, or he sees it as a way to do something that he wants instead of being forced to work in the mines. But actually when he goes to this school, he chooses the wrong things because he feels like there's no other option. But the fact that we have to keep in mind is that these things were still bad choices. As a counterweight, Frederick, he tells, they become friends, and Frederick tells Werner, or Frederick thinks that there's no choice, but then he actually makes the right choices even though they have consequences to him. Then the second character, Marie-Laure, there apparently is an issue with how blindness is portrayed in this book. And before I even knew about that this was an issue, I was making like a list of questions in my phone or thoughts that I had while I was reading. And I remember one thing that I thought about was, is it fair that the father is hiding things from Marie-Laure that he's only able to hide because she's blind? And on the other hand though, the father hides things from her because his love is so great for her and he just wants to protect. The issue that I read about was how during this book Marie-Laure was shown as she can't do things like simple things by herself even though she was old enough, and that she needed help, you know, in things that blind people don't need help in actual life. And then, yeah, after I read this, I started to think, okay, before I knew about this issue, how did I see it? What did I take from this book, from that? And yeah, how I saw her. It's not how everybody sees it, obviously, but I just saw it as the father restricting her a little bit because he was afraid. I didn't see like she couldn't do those things. I just felt like, yeah, the father was trying to protect her too much, and she was raised like that. Like, for example, when the father did a miniature version of the city of Saint Malo, I was thinking, like, why is he making it so detailed and still not letting Marie-Laure out? Like, what was the point? And another scene that I read about was when the father was washing Marie-Laure's hair and bathing her. I think she was like 13 or maybe 14 in the scene. Even before I knew about this issue, I didn't see it as she wasn't able to do that. For me, it seemed like the father was trying to hold on to the last bits of her childhood. You know, because as a child, as a small child, you have to wash their hair and stuff. And interestingly, it was written how, like, when she was done and he handed the towel to her, he turned away. Like, or when Marie got dressed or something, he turned away. I thought this is the father acknowledging it's time to let go and realize that she's actually becoming older and that he needs to let go of her childhood. But obviously, as I don't have the perspective of a blind person, I tried to find reviews, like I looked at bad reviews from the blind perspective, and then I tried to look for the good review from a blind perspective, and the only one I could find, I mean, I didn't do super deep research, but anyway, the only one I thought about was the actress herself in Netflix series who portrayed Marie-Laure, and yeah, she was blind herself. I don't know if there's like two different opinions about it, and I guess it's good to discuss about it. Another thing that I thought about was how a writer sometimes has to write from a perspective that they haven't experienced. And when I started reading this book, I knew that the writer wasn't blind. So I kind of already had it in mind, but I obviously can't assume that everybody has this thought in their mind, like some people might take it as it is. So yeah, let me know what you think about this topic. Thirdly, I want to talk about von Rumpel and the stone. So, von Rumpel, I didn't have a huge problem with his character, except I just didn't understand where he got all the information about where the stone was, where the copies were, blah blah blah. I feel like the book could have been a bit more clear on that. And then the stone. I just didn't get why the museum would risk lives to save this stone. The stone didn't seem to be a deal breaker in the war, or really in anything. Like, I just didn't understand why it couldn't have stayed in the museums. Sure, von Rumpel would have gotten the stone, but like he would have lived, but it wouldn't have really changed the outcome of the war. That's something that really bothered me throughout, and like Marie-Laure's dad risking his daughter's life, potentially, to save this stone. Like, I don't know, maybe I would have needed more explanation on that. And overall, I just wish that the story evolved more around the stone, or that there were higher stakes at risk. Is that how you say it? Yeah, because as a concept, the stone, it was very interesting. And I mean, even in this book, I think it was interesting, and I was interested in reading further, but I just didn't feel like the stone was worth it, and it seemed a little bit more like a side story. I don't know. Also, when Marie-Laure finally finds the stone, like, how does she know that this is the stone? This is the one? because she hadn't talked about the stone in years. Nobody had mentioned it. I don't know. I feel like it was missing something. And talking about questions, I had other questions too, like Madame Mannix, the whole resistance system. It was kind of vague. I had no idea how it came to be. Also, Frederick, I really didn't understand why he stayed in the school, because I understand that he said that there's no choice, but then he still had a choice and he did the right thing. I just didn't get the motivation why he stayed there. Obviously there was some kind of reason, I could sense that, but I just didn't get it, and it might be a me problem. But there were many things that I really liked about this book. I mean, there's already been spoilers, but here's some major spoilers. So in the Netflix series, Etienne dies. So I was expecting that, but he didn't die in the book, and I think that was a very good choice. I think Etienne deserved to live as long as he did. And another point that I liked, that I wasn't expecting to understand, was how Werner fell in love with Marie-Laure. I knew that their meeting was going to be quite short, so I was thinking like, I don't know if the book can justify it. But when the time came, I felt like Werner's love was so boyish. It was kind of like a longing to his past. It was longing to do the right thing. And here's a major spoiler, but when Werner, before he dies, it just breaks my heart talking about it, but he's reminiscing, holding hands with Marie-Laure, and he wonders if she also remembers how it felt to hold hands with him like he did. And talking about Werner's death, it was unpredictable, but after I read it, I realized like it was all over the book from the beginning. And I can't say that I liked that he died, but I think story-wise it was a wise decision. I also read in some reviews that many people didn't like how it ended. I wasn't like a huge fan of how it ended, but I don't think it was necessarily bad. I think it just shows the reality of life, and maybe that's also one of the themes in this book, or things that it's meant to show. Overall, I really enjoyed the style of writing in this book. I think it was well written and I loved the details, but it was heavier and sadder than I expected. I feel like there's still so many questions floating around. What was the theme? What was the moral? What does the title mean? I honestly don't know how I feel about this book. I kind of feel confused. Like, I didn't absolutely love it, but I didn't hate it at all. And I guess if you do read this book, it's good to be mindful of the issues that were raised. Let's have a discussion. I would love to know your opinion, even if you completely disagree with me. If you didn't like the book, if you loved the book, just let me know and let's talk about it. We have come to the end of this video. I want to thank you for watching it. Thank you for following my journey. I hope this video made you think. I hope you enjoyed it. If you follow me on Instagram, I will let you know which book I'm reading next, because I'll have to decide tomorrow. Thank you again, and till the next adventure. Okay, it's filming. Great. To a city called Saint-Malo. Museum of Natural History, right? Yeah. A French blind god. Saint-Malo. The second movie. Oh my goodness. About von Rumpel. DNA. It's so hot. Hot. Talking is like an exercise.